Come on.
Did we just see everything we just saw?
He couldn't have timed that more perfectly. It's the 4th and 1 podcast coming to you live from Lancaster at Liddon. And back in black or yellow with his backwards hat because he's balding. It's Robert up there in Williamstown, Pennsylvania. Of course, thank you all at 4th and 1 podcast, everywhere you get your podcasts, TikTok at 4th and 1 pod, Instagram at 4th and 1 podcast. Yes, it's confusing. Here we are. It's your boy, aka Simeon, of course, with Micaiah, Captain Boring himself. And we already shouted out Robert before we get going. As the podcast game continues to change, and as always, we are very grateful for the fans as of we continue to grow a little bit. Again, very, very tiny channel. So when you comment down below, it is super helpful on both Spotify as well as as well as YouTube. So go ahead and like and subscribe. We apologize. We had technical difficulties. So if you're normally listening to us on Spotify, we apologize for not having us updated last week.
Nerd.
So here we are. What were you saying, Makai?
I said nerd.
Sometimes we have issues, and sometimes we don't. And last week was one of those issues. I don't know really what else to say other than someone else who probably had issues was Texas, I would say.
Yep.
This is me attempting to hand it off so I can shout out a guy.
All right. Well, then, yeah, sure. I'll go from here. Yeah. Texas had loads of issues. It's kind of just felt like after the first 3 possessions that it was Ohio State's game. Give Texas credit, though. They kind of just kept hanging around. For the game, they had a 1st and goal from the 1-yard line to tie the game and somehow messed that up. Time of possession, pretty even, but Ohio State won it. Rushing, 58 yards from Texas, 283 passing. Ohio State had 81 yards rushing, 289. The total yardage was 370 and 341, so overall pretty even game. But it was just the difference makers for Ohio State on defense, especially that D line, specifically Jack Sawyer, scoop and score, 83 yards. That's the difference. What's getting lost in this Ohio State team a lot is everyone's looking at the offense, Jeremiah Smith, Will Howard, and the 2 backs, Cardell Tate, G. Scott, etc. I can go on and on, Emeka Buka. But this defense is really good. The defensive line has some pros on it, some high-level draft picks. Caleb Downs will be a top 5 pick next year, more than likely, with how good he's playing. And then the secondary, outside of Lathan Ransom. Thank you, Robert. I want to say thank you for catching on, finally, that Lathan Ransom is not good. He's a lot like Makari Page. Outside of they're just phenomenal. They're very sound defensively, so.
Okay. Latham Ransom, I knew he wasn't good, but I just forgot about him because he didn't see them too much. You knew he was bad when he got burned by Cornelius Johnson like twice.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that if you would have told me going into that game that Jeremiah Smith would have had 1 catch for 3 yards, I probably would have laughed at you because that he's been like the biggest difference maker on that team, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Especially in the postseason. But, I mean, that game was just a very heavyweight felt match. Texas's defense, it was strong, which is kind of what we expected. They kind of handled Ohio State's rushing. They held them to 81 rushing yards. Obviously, the biggest play other than the fumble recovery for a touchdown was definitely right before the half. The tunnel screen to Henderson. I mean, that's definitely a backbreaker because going into half, it literally would have been 7-7, and who knows where it would have been from there.
They had just tied the game.
Yeah, so I mean, the momentum was on Texas' side, but when you have the ball on the 1 yard line, and I hate that most offenses are when you're on the one, we decide to go from the shotgun. I'll never understand it, and
I guess we'll never know.
yeah,
I understand okay, if you want to do inside zone from the shotgun, right? Or go under center, whatever. Like I don't see the difference in between the two, but Robert, you're more the football guy than I am, so I'll take your word for it.
This is a very easy.
What but it's
no,
not.
we've had this
Michigan,
conversation.
Michigan has made this work for it. Yeah, we've had this conversation.
Okay, but you have a couple
More than
things going
once.
for you here. First of all, you have the offensive. I didn't play single down in football. For those of you wondering, but
same.
even I can see what the difference is there. First of all, Michigan proved, and this year backed up, that offensive line play. You can look at the Eagles with Saquon, Michigan last year. Ohio State did a really great job. Another great example, Notre Dame, as always, offensive line. When your line is motivated and winning in the trenches, you can kind of do whatever you want. So that's number one, why Michigan was able to do it. Number two, why people tend to do it compared to getting under center and handing it off is because their quarterback isn't used to J.J. McCarthy turning around and handing the ball off. That was his best throw last year, was Joe, right? He's not used to actually sticking it out there and throwing it in a guy's gullet so he can get, well, not gullet, but gut, so he can get going on a full steam, which brings us to number three. The reason that you do it is ball gets back to me, line is already moving by the time the ball gets back to me if I'm a quarterback and I'm doing an inside zone from shotgun or from pistol, okay? So line is already moving by the time it hits the quarterback hands. Compared to if I get under center, I have the ball in my hands, we're all moving, quarterback line, offensive line towards it. By the time I'm handing off, he is now at, let's call it 50 to 65% acceleration by the time he has to hit his hole. So you're more likely to get a yard on 50% acceleration by the time that the defensive line can blow up your play if you're in an inside zone or doing a counter in a pistol or something. So that's why you're wrong. You'll always be wrong about this situation.
Sure, except not.
And I don't even know football and just explained why you get under center and hand the ball off.
No, like I understand the reasoning. I just think it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I truly do.
I get it. I get you can kind of do more in a shotgun formation because it's going to be obviously easier for your quarterback to get it. Like he could just have someone drift off and then throw it right away.
Right.
I just don't like the fact of you're on the 1 yard line. Quarterback gets the ball and he's turning, giving it, and you're already at the 6 or the 5 or the 4. So you're already behind.
Right.
Compared to if I'm just turning one step and I'm just sticking that son of a bitch in the fullback's belly or the running back, and it's like, you got 2 yards, get it. 1 yard, get it. Like,
I will agree. The mistake Texas made was they ran sideline. They did a toss play on second down that lost them 6 yards. Like, don't do that, right? Like, either do your fullback dive, which they've done before with their big defensive nose tackle, get under center, get in the shotgun. It's inside zone 4 times.
Michigan does it with Bredesen all the time.
All the time. Just shot, like inside, like just run up the middle 4 times, and on 4th and goal, if it doesn't work, okay, yeah, but then it doesn't work. But you had 1st and goal from the one.
Then the ball's on the 1 yard line instead of the 6 yard line if it's 4th and 1.
Right, exactly. So outside of that, Ohio, Rob, I still think this proves it. If Ohio State can't run the football efficiently, their passing game gets hurt a lot because Ohio State's because
I don't know. I mean,
if
they only ran for 81.
That's what I'm saying. Like
but
if
they 289.
They threw right, but like their offense wasn't explosive. Like you watch that game, and it was like Ohio State should have been up more, but they for whatever reason they weren't. I think the formula to stop Ohio State is, and really it's any team is, if you can control the line of scrimmage with 4 guys and drop 7 against them, it's going to work out a lot. And Texas was able to do that for most of the game. except their like the opening drive of the game, the screenplay, which they sent pressure and then they just bailed everyone 25 yards out. So it was a running start. Simeon, speaking of running starts for Trey Henderson. And then at that point, it was one more drive in the second half and then the scoop and score. So, yeah, puts us in a predicament as Michigan fans because this is just a nightmare starting to come true.
I am so glad you brought that up. There's an Ohio State fan at work, and I go up to fix something, and she goes, "So, does that mean you guys are going to root for us?"
No.
In the championship, and I literally, without second guessing, I go, "I'd rather die than root for Ohio State." And it made everyone around us laugh. And again, for the Penn State fans who just don't get it, that's what an actual rivalry means. Is I am now stuck between a rock and a hard place, rooting for either the most explosive team with the most head of steam going into the national championship in Ohio State, or probably the most dominant all-around team in this playoff so far that we have. Before we get onto that, I just want to say shout out to Henry22 King. We shouted it out last time. He was our one and only Spotify commenter. Yes, you can leave us comments on Spotify.
Hey, let's go.
Please now and do. Just want to give him a shout out again. You're welcome. Go Blue. Here's to more like it. And of course, if you comment down below, we'd also love to give a shout out to Darrell, our father, Daryl, our mom, who is still posting under her work name. So you're welcome. And Babies for Lullaby, the spam bot that is also in our comments. We'll give him a shout out. Listen, if you too also want to be shouted out, go ahead and leave us a comment on YouTube and or Spotify at 4th and 1 Podcast. And let's move over to the other playoff game, the other semifinal, the Capital One Orange Bowl. The game very close. Thank you, Micaiah. Very close, 27-24. But PSU one-dimensional. I think it's safe to say. You got one guy and you got two running backs, both of whom are coming back. You got a guy who really can't make a read and throws a pick to kind of seal it. I don't know what to say. To me, this is a no-duh. Of course, Notre Dame wins, but the final score says 27-24. So maybe I'm wrong.
I went to bed at halftime of this game, and I placed a little wager on Penn State because I was like, if Penn State's going to get 7 yards a rush, which they did the entire first half, this game is just going to be over because Penn State's going to go down, get a touchdown, and their defense was playing really good. Penn State defensive line was blown up. Abdul Carter, rib injury, shoulder injury, whatever he had, and all was just being really excellent. But I watched the highlights. Notre Dame really battled back. But, Simeon, you're absolutely right. The lack of talent and skill at wide receiver for Penn State really was glaring. And I'm not sure that Drew Aller's performance, I'm not sure whether it was the lack of talent on the wide receiver side for Drew Aller or if it is, in fact, Drew Aller. He only threw one interception. He was 12 of 23. That's under 50% for 135 yards and one touchdown. Or I'm sorry, no touchdowns, one interception. He did have a QBR of 72. I think that's a little high because he really should have had three interceptions. He threw three interceptions. Two of them got called back for either defensive pass interference or defensive holding. Both of the interceptions that got called back happened in the end zone or just outside of the end zone as Penn State was going to try to score. So the decision-making there is what I'm questioning because the second non-interception that he threw was into triple coverage. The first one, the corner had great position, and then the third one was back across his body as Penn State with 40 seconds or so is trying to go down and kick the game-winning field goal that ended up giving it to Notre Dame. Rob, what did you see from from Penn State, or why don't you take the Notre Dame angle on this? What did they do well, especially to come back in the second half?
So I stayed up and watched the whole thing because I was lucky enough to have off the next day, unlike some people.
Yeah.
Way to be.
Well, so Notre Dame, I think when Notre Dame came out, Penn State punched him in the mouth, flat out punched him in the mouth, and Notre Dame did not know what to do. The Penn State defense, like you said, flying around, causing disruptions. Riley Leonard looked just uncomfortable in the pocket. They couldn't really get the run game going. Their defense, was like 4 yards downfield by the time they would make any sort of like connection with a Penn State running back or receiver. But I think that Marcus Freeman got in their face, told them, "Hey, it's put up or shut up. We want to be Notre Dame, win one for the Gipper, all that hoorah, smack your signs, and you got your gold helmets and all that goofy stuff. The 24 karat, whatever."
24 karat magic.
They kind of came out in the second half and they just turned the leaf. They started throwing the ball effectively. They took care of Riley Leonard. They started playing Notre Dame football, and it was kind of weird to see them be like pushed out of who they were when we've seen Notre Dame play Notre Dame football the past like 8 weeks, and it looked very good. But, they grew a pair. Came out, slung the rock, did their thing. I actually thought Penn State was going to win this game because Notre Dame looked very shaky towards the end of the fourth quarter. I was like, oh, here we go. But, the defense stood tall, got the interception because Aller just threw it not close to the receiver at all. You can tell that Penn State needs a wide receiver in the absolute worst way, like way more than Michigan does, because your only receiver is your tight end, who is now going to the NFL draft.
So I don't mean to be rude here. I'm gonna jump.
Root it out. Let's go.
Be rude.
Yeah.
You gotta throw to him. Like,
who?
I get it. Like, I blamed
the wide receivers.
The wide receivers.
Oh yeah.
Like, I blamed them in the group thread. I have the receipts. I said whatever receiver was, ran a really bad route. Granted, he was the third read on it, so I'll give him a little bit of benefit of the doubt. But he just ran a really lazy route that didn't sell it at all. So is that the receiver's fault because he was the third read and in reality just needed to keep the guy distracted? Is this Aller's or the play scheming where they're not scheming the guys open? Is this just them not getting enough reps in the game? Because at the end of the day, like, it's not that hard. You run around and catch a ball that's thrown in your general direction. Like, well, I don't mean to be rude, but you're at one of the largest blue chips in the nation, probably getting paid at least, $150,000 to play there. I catch the ball.
Yeah, I think what goes unnoticed is Penn State's going to have a Michigan problem, right? Michigan's problem with wide receivers is they're a running school, and they're going to be rooted in running. They are a run-first operation. So the reps that the wide receivers do get to catch in game aren't going to be nearly as high as some other programs. And Penn State is working its way into that. I did not realize this before I watched the Notre Dame game. They had 2,000-yard backs in Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen, both of whom are coming back. So they're also in the middle of Pennsylvania. So while I get that they are a blue chip and they are a big-time school in the Big Ten, I think in the mountains of Pennsylvania is a little harder to sell than, for an example, Michigan. I'm just taking like school on like school, run first schools, where Michigan's in Ann Arbor, which is literally just 30 minutes from Detroit. In Penn State, you're literally in the middle of nowhere.
I mean, in Columbus, you're in.
Yeah, you got like 4 hours either way.
Right, you're right. I mean, you're in. Yeah. It's a especially for a position that is diva based. Am I right? Like Like
Likes
they
to go fast.
They like to go fast. They want the football. They want to
Well,
run
if you like
in
to go
good.
fast, you go to Georgia. We all know this.
They want to
Or even
operate
LSU.
in good weather and clean weather. And after about October 14th or so, second week of October, the weather just ain't right to go fast.
Yeah.
I mean,
right?
sure, you can always just read a book. That is an option. If
Hey,
you get
listen,
bored.
as long as he's not causing problems in their locker room, let him alone.
Dude, I love
Let
that.
him alone.
I absolutely. I'm like, I don't even care. Like, I would have been like, "What you reading, AJ?" For those of you who don't know, Eagles wide receiver AJ Brown was caught reading a book in between drives this weekend in their something to something win over
Green Bay.
Green Bay. Thanks.
Rob, back to
Nope.
your one catch for 3 yards, which is what Jeremiah Smith had.
So it was just a bad game.
That is more catches and more yards than any Penn State wide receiver had against Notre Dame.
Did their entire
I was like,
pass
yeah.
game go to Tyler Warren?
Tyler Warren or running backs. I do want to give a tremendous MVP shout out for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. The MVP of this game is Steve Angeli, backup quarterback. Riley Leonard goes out right before the first half is over, leads a drive down to kick a field goal to make it 10-3 right before half, kept him in the game, got some momentum, and then obviously the rest is history. But 3 big points there right before half. So shout out to the Notre Dame MVP.
And shout out to Notre Dame. Is he coming back? He came back in the second half, Riley Leonard?
Yes,
Yeah.
he finished the game, yeah.
Okay, that was a game that I think I watched like the end of, if I'm remembering correctly, and then my group chat went off with all my Penn State homers.
Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame's going to have to figure out how to run the football against Ohio State because they averaged 2.8 yards a carry, 42 carries for $117. Jeremiah Love, 11 carries, 46 yards. Like, he needs to get healthy in the worst way because if their identity is just Jeremiah Love and they're hoping Riley Leonard doesn't turn the ball over, I don't think that's going to work out so well for them against the Buckeyes.
I mean, not to be rude, he did throw for 2,600 yards. It's not like he can't throw the ball.
I'm not saying he can't throw. I'm just saying I wouldn't.
But you also have Caleb Downs up back there
It's the
playing
Drew
cover
Aller
one,
thing,
so-
right?
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to blame James Franklin for losing a big game. The only mistake James Franklin made is that he didn't regale Andy Kolnicki of the story about how Michigan walked into his place last year, 2 years ago, however you want to phrase it, and ran the ball 32 straight times in the second half and beat him. Because that's what they should have done in the second half against Notre Dame. They were getting, as I said, 6 and 7 yards a pop.
It was just weird. It was a weird second half for Penn State because I think we were all, people who were watching it, I think we were waiting for the Franklin moment. You know, like, how is Franklin going to mess this up? And, like, he kind of didn't.
Yeah.
But, like, they kind of just didn't play their game. They were just killing him on the ground just over and over and over again. But then it would just be a weird pass play that wouldn't go anywhere, or they would run it once and it would get 2 yards. And then it was like panic mode. Like, oh my God, now we have to throw it. And it's like, no, just keep running it down Notre Dame's throat. They didn't have an answer for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think sometimes the easiest solution is the simplest solution, and people think it's more complicated than that, right? Like, they get, as you said, they get in their head a little bit. Okay, they stopped us for 2 yards. Okay, that doesn't mean your running game isn't working. Just find another play that is going to work, you know? If 99% of all other plays work, then just keep doing that one thing and don't freak out too much. Rob, you're going on and off mute, maybe?
Yeah, we're good.
You got a game? You got some what ifs for us before we get into preview?
I was kind of thinking, and I was like, we haven't done anything really different. And I was like, all we really have is a national championship game. But here you go. What if Notre Dame dog walks Ohio State this weekend? Straight up dog walks them.
First of all, love that. Love that for us. What if? That'd be great. Would love
Right.
that.
So you're looking at Ohio State, who has been playing essentially lights out, balls out the past however many weeks.
Right.
Still the $20 million team. You still have Ryan Day. Like, does anything necessarily change with Ohio State if they just get manhandled by Notre Dame? And then what does that essentially do for Notre Dame being a non-conference team? Keep flexing. We don't need to be in a conference. We just beat literally the entire Big Ten, which is the conference that everyone said we should go into.
So the narrative, if the season ended right now, is that, at least throughout the media, is that Ryan Day has kind of righted the ship from the Michigan loss, right? So getting dog walked by Notre Dame in a game that he's a 9.5-point favorite currently. Simeon, can you look that up? 8-point favorite over. I think that kind of takes him back of, okay, he can't win the game when he's a favorite, right? Like, I think that becomes the narrative of it. If he's a favorite, if he's a heavy favorite, he can't win that game. If he's expected to do well, if they're expected to dog walk people, he can't do well. But if the game's expected to be close, he's absolutely your man. For Notre Dame, I think that it just puts a final stamp on all the ammo for all the haters, like AKA, that says join a conference, which is like, why? They've earned $14 million just for themselves. Now, meanwhile, Washington State and Oregon State have earned $25 million apiece, but I digress. But Notre Dame has ordered or has gained $14 million just by advancing to the national championship because they are their own conference, quote unquote. It does, I think, eventually open things up to where instead of we go to 2 super conferences, do other teams maybe look to do the same, become like the Michigans, the Ohio, the big name programs who can handle themselves, get individual TV contracts with certain, and then branch off and become their own kind of thing, like Notre Dame. I think that's probably a tougher sell than 2 super conferences, but I think if Notre Dame does this and then does it again, proving that they don't need a conference, they just need a conference affiliation, yeah, I think that opens up that possibility.
Sorry, I'm totally looking at the coaching carousel, which I'm sure we'll get into later. This is what I do, guys. I start it when I actually have something to say. I say it. Robert, this is a great what if for multiple reasons, and I'll try to make up at least 2 more, so it is multiple.
Sounds like a discussion post reply. This is a great what if situation, and then you just BS
reasons.
for the next paragraph and a half.
Number
here's
1.
my opinion and why.
Yeah.
Makai, I'm going to go in the opposite direction. I think it gives him breathing room because he did win big games. Not only did he beat Oregon, he smacked them. Just forearm-sized penis into the room,
right,
and then smacked them all over the place.
People's elbow. Yeah.
He gave him the people's elbow. Love that. And smacked them all over the place.
Shout out Dwayne The Rock Johnson. No one's ever heard of him before.
He looked real good against the Texas team, who, granted, was trending downwards at the latter half of the season, but still was there when you needed him to be. So we had those aspects where he had 2 big games where he had to step up and prove himself, and he did. Yes, it's a Michigan, and I get it. We're a little bit biased. But you got to kind of forgive him that and look, hey, I'm not going to land Bill Belichick if I go to try to hire a coach right now, right? Maybe you give him another season so his seat's a little warm, but you're not getting a better coach than Ryan Day. There's no better available Ryan Day-esque coach. Dan Mullen went to UNLV. Unless you're going to pay somebody to flip-flop, you need an SEC Big Ten level caliber coach to replace Ryan Day. And it's not going to be whoever his offensive coordinator is. You're not going to want to hire from within. If you're going to want to be Ohio State, you're going to blow stuff up. So That's the Ohio State thing. Disagree with you. Notre Dame. I hate that it's gone so successful for Notre Dame. If Notre Dame dog walks them, it's just there's going to be a rage that in 2033 when Michigan plays them again, I hope we just absolutely destroy them. Because they had a soft ass schedule at the end of the year. At the end of the day, what was their hardest win? Texas A&M. They had a loss in Northern Illinois.
Overall, yeah, I'd say.
I'll pull it up.
Like, pull up their schedule. Tell me what their hardest win was.
In terms of ranking, it would have been Army, who was ranked 19th at the time they played.
Tell me what their hardest win was, Makai. Because what's the final score of the Army game?
Their hardest win was USC 49-35, last game of the season. But before that,
Louisville played them close, yeah.
Louisville was a 7-point game, 31-24, and then
Pretty sure they needed a miracle for the Louisville game.
And then Texas A&M, that win was 23-13 on the road in Aggieland there.
So they had, let's call it 2 games. They had a couple close, almost oopsies. You're not in a conference. Yes, you funded your NIL for the next year by not being in a conference. However, SMU got in and they had 2 losses. Clemson got in and they had 1 loss, if I'm remembering correctly. 2 losses. Freaking, we almost let Alabama in with 3 losses just because we felt nice, I guess.
And they lost to Michigan, bitches!
They can't handle the rain, apparently.
It was for like a 20-minute span.
Yeah.
Alabama looked lost in the rain.
Yeah, 100%.
And Michigan's just like, this is another average Saturday.
But if they had dropped a game to USC, maybe not USC, but let's say they had lost that Louisville game. I'm going to give you a what if back to both of you. If they lost that Louisville game, what if they lost that Louisville game? Would we still be talking about Notre Dame, or would there be a different... Would Alabama have gotten in?
I think if they would have gotten, I don't know if they would have put him in or not, just because we all know how the committee is.
It doesn't have to be Alabama, but that's the...
If they would have put Notre Dame in, it would have been that, because of Boise State being 4, it would have been that 12-11 spot, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But, I mean, yeah, they very well could have left them out. Like, the strength of the schedule definitely wouldn't have been there for him.
Can I ask a question right now? Because we're talking about coaches. Marcus Freeman, great coach, right? 38 years old,
Proved
young,
himself.
great.
For sure.
Proved himself, had former Ohio State linebacker. So this is kind of a little bit of a homecoming revenge sort of deal, you know. Right now, who is the best? Let's assume, or let's play a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Ohio State wins by 2 touchdowns over Notre Dame. Who's the best coach in college football right now?
Kirby.
Is it?
Probably.
Because Kirby's got a whole bunch of off-the-field issues he's dealing with.
Yeah, but...
Yeah.
Right?
Are we judging guys for off-the-field issues?
I mean, I don't think it should be the sole judgment, but I do think it should play a factor. Right now, okay, now let me flip it around. Marcus Freeman beats Ohio State by 10 points, two scores, right? But it's close. They get like a scoop and score towards the end or something, pick six towards the end to seal it. Who's the best coach in college football now?
Kirby.
It's still Kirby, either way.
I think I have an issue. Yeah, even if the issue I have with Notre Dame is they're pigeonholing themselves. And it works both for the team and for the coach. Dude, you had no good wins, and you lost to Northern Illinois, who's going to the Mountain West. So, work with me on how you're good. Like, if Boise State somehow won out, Aston Genty just went absolute Super Saiyan, God tier mode, S tier, just bought everybody their lunch and folded their laundry. Well, I wouldn't be turning around, I don't even know the guy's name, and saying, oh yeah, Boise State's head coach is the best coach out there. I would have said, man, they got really lucky. They got this turnover here, and he ran for 300 yards on this game, and he threw an incredible pass here. Like, Marcus Freeman does not get I'm the best coach. He gets, I'm an A-tier level coach, but as far as S-tier coaches go, I mean, only Kirby has really proven himself right now.
But
maybe a Sark.
No, I guess Kirby, because Kirby's got the 2 national championship games,
Well,
right? But
listen, when you look at the way I'm looking at it is, so when you look at Kirby, you're saying, okay, who can't Kirby beat? Alabama, but can beat everybody else, right? Pretty much.
yeah.
You look at Ohio State, who for right now, who can't Ryan Day beat? And you'd say Michigan, but they can beat everybody else.
Right.
The difference between those two is obviously Kirby has the 2 national championships and been putting players into the draft the same way Ohio State is, but the national championships are kind of the difference right now. Marcus Freeman, he's on his way. But we have to remember, okay, they had the Northern Illinois loss this year. They lost to Marshall last year. Yep. So he's kind of having this unfortunate history of losing to teams that they should just beat on. But they are turning it around at the end of the season. So, yeah, Notre Dame wins a national championship. That's great. It adds to his resume. Winning one national, because if you're saying, okay, winning one national championship, you might want to be one of the greatest coaches that's there right now, then, if Harbaugh comes back, does Harbaugh automatically become the greatest coach? I would still say Kirby's probably still ahead of Harbaugh. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So if Harbaugh would have won and then just came back and was just continued on, I would have said Harbaugh, right? Like if Michigan then would have made it again to the college football playoff, and it was kind of the same result for this year.
Because it's just resume builder, which is what this is for Freeman. If Notre Dame comes out next season and he gets them in the same position, they're back in a national championship, win or lose. I mean, to get you back, and especially in a scenario next year where I think we're moving to 14, right?
Yeah.
So now you have more games that you're essentially playing. It's just, he's only been the coach for 3 years?
Who,
2 years? No. Freeman.
Freeman? Yeah, 3 years. Yeah.
3 years. Yeah. So, he would be in the adolescent age of the coaching chaos that I would call it. In reality, he was probably, after the NIU game, if they were 2 more losses after that, I feel like they would probably be looking at almost letting him go or telling him, hey, listen, you need to figure it out the next year's your break year, make it or break it kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, he's a couple. What also hurts is the fact that he's not in the conference because he doesn't have the conference championships to hang it on also.
Right.
Another point.
That's the hard part.
Kids are going to get tired of being like, yeah, I get it. You're in the playoff every year, but we don't play anybody until the end of the year. And if you lose 2 games, I'm sorry to keep harping on this Notre Dame thing, but I think join a conference. You have you can pick from.
So I think that's a little unfair because they do have rivals of USC. So it just depends. Some of their games do depend on how good their teams are, right? That year. So USC and Stanford, those are 2 rivals they play every year. USC, and I'm just going to, Stanford's been down for a little bit yet, but USC, if they figure it out and they're a top 15 team, that's a good win year in, year out. Where I will back you up is the academy schools. Can we get rid of Army and Navy? I'm okay if you play one of them a year, but we don't need to play both of them a year.
Well, this is the point. They're so steeped in tradition that they're going to always play the academy schools.
And then
it
depends.
Play USC.
And then it depends on their ACC draw that they get, right?
But join the ACC.
Because if they're getting
Army
the top teams. If they're getting a Clemson and SMU every year that are going to finish in the top 15, their resume actually looks pretty good.
So, Micaiah, here, I can fix all your problems. It's real easy. It makes Notre Dame happy.
$1 million.
and a blowjob. Listen,
Come on.
you join the ACC. Now you're playing Stanford every year as a protected rival. I don't know if the ACC does that, but they should, okay? So ACC, now you play Stanford every year. You're welcome. You know who your 3 non-conference games are every year? Navy, Army, USC. Bam! I fixed your issues. You're welcome, and you can play in a conference.
I think probably a more realistic fit for Notre Dame is they don't do the conference, but they do the affiliate. Like because they do that with basketball.
They're in the ACC in basketball.
Yeah.
Right. So I could see them going and being like, listen, we're not going to be part of your conference, but I would like to be an affiliate of your conference for football.
Member. Yeah.
And like we will play.
Which would be hilarious, by the way.
Like, they could still do like, I don't know, how many games do we play anymore in a season?
12.
12. Okay. We'll be like, I'll play 6 ACC games and 6 like non-conference, but like that would be your USC, your Army, Navy, because then that way you can kind of still get like your.
But that's
Clemson,
what they
Notre
do
Dame
already.
Yeah, but at least if they stick it to one conference, to where it's like.
But they do. They play their ACC draw every year.
No, yeah, but not like one. Like they play 6.
Right, but don't they play multiple ACC's teams every year?
They played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ACC schools.
I know they don't have a set number that they have to play, but
I honestly think that they should just join the ACC based on the fact that during the COVID year, the ACC said, "Hey, Notre Dame, you can come play in our conference." And they technically won the ACC championship game during the COVID season. So I just think they're indebted to them.
You're a Big Ten team who for some reason align themselves with the ACC. Join the ACC. The rest of your sports play in the ACC. Join the ACC. Be normal. Keep the contract money. ACC, you're doing it with SMU. Like, if this is a money thing, this isn't hard. If I'm the ACC, I am still gasping for air. I'm not loving that SMU was my second team in. I'm not loving that Clemson had to literally go perfect, basically, out of their remainder game if I'm Georgia. I'm saying, here's the deal. Keep all your money for NBC. If you get into the conference, if you get into the playoff for the remainder of your TV contract, you can keep all the money, but be affiliated with us permanently. Like, join the ACC. Because I am bribing them to join me if I can. I'm assuming you want me to shut up about this now.
Oh, I would. Yeah, I thought you were at the end of your point, and then I was going to hit that. So I was
one of you guys was going to respond. I don't care.
I was just premature. I am speaking of all of this Notre Dame stuff. I just see the timestamp, and I do want to preview the Natty since we are.
I thought we already talked about that. We were just
Ohio State, Notre Dame. Notre Dame reminds me of a Michigan team, right? They want to run the football and have great defense. Notre Dame leads the nation in turnovers, points off turnovers. Ohio State has the number 1 defense in terms of scoring defense and yards per play and et cetera, et cetera. And then their offense is their offense, and you will hear this ad nauseum. So, Robert, I'm just going to throw it to you, and then we'll come back to me, and then Simeon will finish with you. What do you think of the Natty? Can Notre Dame keep this thing close and competitive into the fourth quarter? What I'm asking is, can they keep it to where we're watching it the whole game?
Oh, absolutely. The easiest way is you go back to the past 4 years and you watch how Michigan plays Ohio State. If you can control the clock, slow the game down, do not get in a track meet with Ohio State, and you make them earn the yardage, if they throw a big pass, do not give up the big pass. Just make them play your style of football. It's gonna be close. It will be a close game. I promise you that. If you let them just run wild and go up tempo, you try to match that, you are going to look like Oregon, and they will have 34 points on you in the first quarter.
Can they, or will they, though?
Will they?
Yeah. I'm asking essentially for your prediction.
I know. No.
Yeah.
No. Ohio State, they finally figured out who they are. And they figured it out after Michigan beat their ass in Columbus. Even though it was a 3-point win. You have to sit there and say, no, they beat on them. That was the most physical game Michigan's played all year, and Ohio State had to cry that we were planting a flag in their field about it. But ever since then, Ohio State has played angry. They've played efficient. I mean, they've just been all over the field. The defense was the defense that we thought we were that we were going to see, all season. It's hard for me to imagine Ohio State losing to Notre Dame, even though I would love to see it. But I can't imagine that Ohio State doesn't put up 35, like a 42-21 game.
Yeah. I keep going back to, and every time I see a unlikely, improbable, fantastic finish, whether it's in pros or whether it's in college football, whether it be a Hail Mary or a walk-off field goal where right before the walk-off field goal, something good happens. So in this case, like Notre Dame just tied the game. Penn State has the ball, probably should have gone to overtime. Instead, Drew Aller throws the pick six. So it's kind of like they lucked into the win, but I don't want to say they lucked into the win because Notre Dame earned that win, right? Everyone sees what I'm trying to say. I think in the past, whenever that has happened, the next week, it is just the team that kind of lucked into the following week runs out of emotional steam. And I'm just seeing Ohio State's doing this and Notre Dame's kind of doing this. And I just think it's not going to end well for Notre Dame. I think it's a 2-score game, easy. Maybe garbage time touchdown, Notre Dame gets it, but it is probably talking coronation midway through the fourth quarter sort of deal for Ohio State, which pains me as a Michigan fan. Notre Dame has lost their leading sack leader, tackle for loss leader as well, along, I think his name is Riley Willis, along that defensive line. So that extremely hurts them. Jeremiah Love's not 100% healthy. And again, Riley Leonard's capable of throwing the ball, but I don't know with the defensive front and the defensive secondary outside of Lathan Ransom, like that Notre Dame has enough talent to win one-on-one matchups against that secondary of Ohio State. So, Rob, I'm kind of with you. I think that it's kind of close early, but Ohio State shows they're a tough football team because this is a tough football team. In the second half, runs the football with Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, gets Jeremiah Smith involved early, and then gives him kind of the break he needs in the second half, and runs literally and figuratively runs away with the Natty.
I'm kind of surprised they're playing the game on MLK Day. Normally they don't do it on a holiday.
Yeah, well, I think it's just a holiday for basketball, maybe?
Well, no, I mean, yeah, the NBA has their MLK Day
stuff.
Doesn't the
entire WNBA take off June then?
But what I mean is because I mean we have off of work,
right?
So
that's right, you guys
it's just weird. I would have figured. Yeah. I mean, I guess they always do play it on a Monday, don't they?
Yeah, which again is some bullshit.
Dumb,
right? Yeah,
like it would have been this year would have been perfect to play it on Sunday because people having off on Monday.
Yeah,
or Saturday. Again, college football gets played on Saturday.
All right, yeah.
I don't know why this is so hard. We can change the bad things about the sport and keep the good things about the sport. You know what one of the good things is? It's played on a Saturday. Okay?
And a Monday, and a Tuesday, and a Wednesday, and a Thursday,
hey,
and a Friday.
Hey.
We're not the MAC. We're playing on normal pace here.
The MAC doesn't count.
You know, you're just like coming home from work and you're just like, oh, what's on TV tonight? Oh, Akron's playing Kent State tonight, baby. Let me tune in.
Central
go.
Michigan's got some
Yeah.
Buffalo in them.
Oh, Wednesday night action, Thursday night Sun Belt football.
Hey, don't knock on the
tickets are
Sun
low.
Belt. Them Thundering Herd.
Tickets are as low as basically $1,400 to go see this game in hot Atlanta.
Yeah,
Hopefully you'll
I
actually.
believe that.
So, Simeon, who
Converts
you
that.
got? Who you got? By the way, the spread opened at 9.5, and it's down to 8. So people are betting the Irish to keep this close.
Yeah. Here's my question. Over/under is at 45.5. What are you guys taking on that?
Well,
Under.
considering that I just said that there was going to be like a 75-point game, so I guess I'm the over.
I think it ends up like 24-10.
It's either
So I'm taking the
24-10 or it's
Yeah.
like 48-35.
No in between.
It's gonna be either like ground and pound 13-7 sort of game, or
It's
it's
a
gonna end up,
7-0 snooze fest.
yeah,
for 2
or
hours.
it's gonna end up being like, where did the defenses go, guys?
Lord, please let it be a 13-10 final with Notre Dame winning, because that would be hilarious.
with Will Howard throwing a pick.
Yeah, with Will Howard throwing a pick inside of his red zone.
And the kicker's making the OHIO at the end. Listen, I don't know here. I'm just gonna say, shout out. It's on the shelf. Makai, guys, I'm gonna say the same exact thing you are. To me, it's Ohio State's going this way. Notre Dame's kind of here. The question is, at what point do they cross? Who's going to be first? You know, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I don't see much else. And I don't
That's
see
it,
much-
bro.
I don't
No,
see much
I
else to
think
keep
we're all
going.
on the same page there. Let's get on out of here.
See you guys next week. Like, subscribe, comment.
Wash your hands, you filthy animal. Thank you all.